Pushing woke ideology.
Welcome
like
to
gender
Get Real
fluidity.
America.
Where we're getting real and getting down to the nitty gritty of what's going on and getting you the real truth of what's going on behind the news scenes.
I'm Brittany Brown.
I'm Bill Edwards. A good Wednesday morning. Here it is, Hump Day.
Thank goodness for that, Bill.
Yeah.
It's a short week for most of you, but Bill and I started on Monday, so.
That's right, because it was Labor Day, so we were laboring.
Yes, sir.
And the weather here in the Savannah area beginning to get a little iffy again. You can almost set your watch by when it rains around here these days. We just thank God when we look around and see Jackson, Mississippi, and places like that in Kentucky that have had so much rain recently that it really is we're getting pretty soaked here too. So we're going to have some flooding issues. And we're still looking at the tropics. September traditionally is the most active hurricane month. There are two off of one is way up in the North Atlantic. It's just going to be a fish storm. But Earl is coming nearby, and it's not going to affect us directly. It will affect us tide-wise and maybe higher tides and some beach and coastal flooding and things of that nature. So Earl's out there. We're taking a look at that and keeping some waves coming off the west coast of Africa that we always keep an eye on this time of year, and that's when typically that we do get some of our worst hurricanes, including the one that in 1989, Hurricane Hugo, that was so devastating. We thought was coming up about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We thought, Brittany, that thing was coming right up the Savannah River. And then it hit some little bump or something, and it went to Charleston. Now, we still got a lot of wind and rain from it, but boy, Charleston was just devastated.
Yeah, I heard that Savannah's been actually pretty lucky on the hurricane front. So
we have.
That is good news.
The only one that's hit us directly in the last recent memory is 1979, Hurricane David.
I was not alive.
Yeah, and they came directly on shore. Well, I was here and working, and it was a mess. But it actually taught us a lot of lessons because we were not really prepared for a direct hit hurricane. Some people were without power for 3 weeks to a month or more.
Oh my goodness.
And what was Savannah Electric and Power at the time? It's now part of what's called Georgia Power.
Yeah.
But they came up with a plan that became a national model of working with other electric companies to come in here very quickly and get people hooked back up. And that's what you see now. When a city is hit badly or an area is hit badly, you see these people coming in from Cleveland, Raleigh, I mean, you name it, and they're here, and usually they have us back up and running in practically no time, comparatively speaking. So God bless you all.
Yeah, that's amazing. And let's hope that we have no hurricanes this season in Savannah.
We've been lucky so far. In the meantime, what kind of wind might be blowing at the school board meeting? Savannah Chatham County School Board is meeting for the first time, and they're allowing parents to come in tonight. Starts at 6 o'clock for folks locally.
Yes, and it's at the Whitney Administrative Complex. They are voting on the Parents' Bill of Rights, which I don't know if you're familiar, Bill, but Kemp passed something earlier this year in regards to this, and it allows parents to actually go in and see the curriculum that their kids are being taught and being able to pull them actually out of sex education and things like that they don't want their kids participating in.
There's a lot of books in the libraries
Yes.
that shouldn't be there in the first place. And the excuse they give is that, well, not many people check them out anyway. Not many people read them. It collects more dust than it does read. I don't care. They shouldn't be there in the first place. I don't care that they should have been published in the first place. But we're not going to go into the book burning thing. We're accused of the book burners when we say something like that. Just if parents want their kids to read this and read that filth and trash and poison their minds, go ahead. They shouldn't be in the public school libraries.
Right, especially, I mean, we had these older ladies reading these books at the school board meeting, and I mean, you're kind of just...
The language is absolutely shocking.
It's bad.
One of the teachers from nearby Richmond Hill here, a nice community right outside of Savannah, brought me one of the books that they had in their school system in Bryan County, and she showed me one of the paragraphs about it concerned a homosexual relationship with a couple of young boys, and I've been around the block a few times, but boy, I'm telling you, this was a jaw dropper.
Yeah, well, and my thing is like, if it's not educational, it doesn't really need to be in the schools. I mean, I think that there are some, of course, some imaginative books that are good for kids to read about space or, dinosaurs, things like that, but these sexually explicit books, they have no place in the schools.
But yet they'll ban Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer because the N word is in there. Phew, we can't have that. Have you heard any rap music lately?
I think that that's the thing, though, Bill. It's such a it only
Double standard.
yeah. Well, if it
Among
fits their
others?
narrative, yeah. If
Yeah,
it fits their
fits
narrative,
the narrative.
Yep. So
So that's the agenda. So 6 o'clock tonight, and we'll have new school board president Roger Moss there, who has been a pillar of this community. And this guy is, I mean, he is the real deal. Roger has been in education and has started private schools. He started Montessori type schools. He is a guy who takes psychology out of the classroom and puts it into reality. He started a Savannah Children's Choir some years ago, and he took kids out of the hood and what urban communities, whatever else you want to call, whatever it's called this week.
Yeah.
So I don't want to misuse a pronoun or something, but Roger took these kids, some of whom had never heard melodies before. They'd grown up listening to rap. I mean, we're talking about 9, 10, 12-year-old kids, and they'd heard all this rap crap all of their lives, and they'd never heard melodies. Some of them never, as a child, had never heard "Mary Had a Little Lamb," any of the childhood little nursery rhymes
Yeah.
and things that most of us are familiar with. And he put these kids together. They had to keep good grades. They had to keep at least a B average, and they had to keep up with their homework and everything else.
that's better than sports averages.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. Maybe it was C average, but at the same time, they had to keep up with their grades. And he put this choir together, and they started going around different competitions, started winning them. He's taken them to places that they sang at Notre Dame
Wow.
about 4 years ago, and taken them all over the world, winning these competitions in Venice, in Prague, I mean, you name it. And these are kids who hardly knew the fact that we had a beach and
Wow.
never been out of town before, and they're going over to all these European countries and winning these awards. Roger Moss is the real deal, and he is the new school board president, and hopefully he's going to set the tone for getting a good education in our classrooms here in Savannah and Chatham County.
Yeah, I really hope the board works with him. And I heard him speak a few times while he was running, and I love that his focus is on excellence for children, which they deserve.
This is the thing, when you set the standards high, they meet the standards. I can remember John Stossel, God bless him, when he did Stupid in America,
Yeah.
a television series that he did. And boy, I'll tell you, the teachers' unions in New Jersey and New York got their shorts in a wad. They were demonstrating in front of the ABC headquarters in New York City, and coming out and yelling, "Teach, John, teach. Why don't you go into the classroom and try it if you think it's so easy?" And he said, "Okay, can I bring in a camera?" "Never mind."
When you call their bluff, it seems like they always back down.
Be glad to. Just let me bring in the cameras. Okay. So it just shows that when he pointed out in one Ohio school district where they said, they have what we call the AP classes, the advanced placement classes,
Yep.
where the better students are supposed to be enrolled. Finally, one school district said, "Why don't we make all classes AP classes?" And suddenly the kids who were failing started passing. C students became B students, B students became A students, and the A students even excelled even further. And it all because we set standards and they met the standards.
Yeah, I also think it's interesting that nowadays I feel like kids have more homework than they've ever had, but yet they're not actually learning anything. Like they're not able to do a lot of the things that you were able to do, like when you went to school.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you had homework, but it's not at 2-3 hours a night.
And we were also allowed to go outside and play,
Yeah,
which, they have this thing where it has to be so many hours in class. Get the kids outside and do a little. And we had PE. We always dreaded having PE the first period because you got all hot and sweaty.
Yes.
And for the rest of the day, you didn't get to shower and change clothes or anything. But we have students now who are so physically unfit, and mental fitness and physical fitness go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Said Plato. It's not a new concept. And you ask any Army recruiter today, the DIs that we have at Fort Stewart and right across the river at Parris Island, say the kids that are coming in today are so out of shape, if they even come in at all. None of the military right now are meeting their recruiting goals.
No.
But they say the kids are so out of shape. If you send them one lap around one of these quarter-mile tracks, they're down about halfway through on their knees blowing lunch.
I heard that they have actually they've put in a fat camp, and it's like a 3-month thing to get these people to where they need to be to at least enroll. I mean, they're not up to the standard, but they're at least able to kind of compete.
And that's just the standard military. When you look into things like the Green Berets, the Special Forces, the Rangers, the SEALs, that's an entire. So you even have a smaller pool to choose from of people who are in shape.
Yeah, and those people are very, very important when we go into these special operations.
So good luck on the school board meeting tonight. We'll have a full report for you tomorrow and let you know exactly what happened. Meanwhile, Savannah Police, this was a scary scene. About 7 o'clock last night, the Savannah Police there was some sort of a chase involved. The car that they were chasing hit them. The car completely overturned, and the 2 police officers who were inside were injured, but fortunately not life-threatening. And so, wow, what a, I mean, it just looked awful. When you saw that, you said, did these guys even get out alive?
Yeah, well, and it's always shocking when you see a police car flipped over, because you're like, how did that happen? I mean, for me, I can't believe it.
Any of these scenes where you drive by after it happened, how did the car that was going east get completely turned around west?
Yes, I would like to see the replay on that.
Exactly. Meanwhile, there's a problem that we're having with Savannah shootings.
Yes, there has been a problem for quite a while.
And some people are getting awfully fed up with it. We had a 2-year-old that was shot and killed at some mass shooting just a couple of weeks ago, a little over 2 weeks ago. And there are some ladies right now in the Victory Heights said that they are just fed up. Our television station WTOC, the local CBS affiliate, had this report from Melissa Jackson on 2 women who were thinking about moving. So we'll be talking about that as well. Yeah, and
there was just a shooting last night on Bolton Street, and they came upon a man who had been grazed by a bullet. So, I mean, I don't know what is going on.
One woman in the Victory Heights said she was about 20 feet away when she heard this shot, and she showed there was a bullet hole in her car, just above the fender, above the tire. And said, that could have been her. One of the people that came in, one of the other ladies that was there said, somebody said that there's blood in your driveway. So
oh my goodness!
She said, we've just about had it. And once again, we don't defund the police around here, but we don't have enough police officers, and right now nobody does.
No, not at all. And we have to get a handle on this in Savannah. I know that they're doing a lot of things. They just had that sweep that they did, and they had a lot of arrests, and were able to recover a couple of stolen vehicles. So, I mean, they're working on it, but
weapons,
yes,
cash, drugs. Yeah. What a surprise.
Yeah.
All right. Coming up next,
we are going to be jumping into some tragic news from Memphis.
Oh, boy.
A Democrat indicted.
The last 3 years, Georgia's been tested in ways we could never imagine. And it fell to Governor Brian Kemp to successfully lead us during these troubling times. Georgia is still first in the nation for business. Our unemployment rate is the lowest in state history. Today, people come to Georgia to succeed, start a business, raise a family. Kemp has always backed the blue, stopping the radical left from defunding local police. He passed a tough new election integrity bill that, as the governor likes to say, made it easy to vote and hard to cheat. And while some during COVID-19 shut down their economy, Kemp kept our schools and businesses open while keeping Georgians safe. A long list of accomplishments. Fighting human trafficking, increasing teacher pay, greater access to quality health care. A governor who works for Georgians. All of us. Governor Brian Kemp.
Oh boy.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
And Democrats, they're back to their propaganda, pushing woke ideology like gender fluidity.
I'm Bill Edwards, he's Brittany Brown. We're glad you're here. And in Memphis. Oh,
What a tragic end to a story. They did find.
how senseless is this from a guy who shouldn't have been out of jail in the first place? This guy's had a rap sheet that stretches from here to Washington, D.C., and he's out of jail. And this had to have been planned to a great degree.
You would think. I mean, how do you select this person at random? And also, I mean, his history too of kidnapping prominent people.
Mm-hmm. This was over 20 years ago. He was something like 16 or 17 years old when he tried to kidnap, or actually did kidnap, a prominent Memphis attorney. Forces him to go to an ATM and withdraw money. But there was a happier ending to that story. The attorney survived. But this kid spent, 16 years in prison, something like that?
Yes. And then got out. And I don't know how long he was out before he took Eliza, but very, very sad ending.
Winter Correctional Facility, I think one of the biggest misnomer around practically is Correctional Institute. They don't correct anybody.
No. And prison actually breeds a lot of more crime, and they get to know more people.
I talked to a police officer one time. He said if he arrests a third-class safe cracker, said he can come out 6 months later, and now he's an expert.
Oh my goodness!
Because they get together with the other criminals
and they talk about it
of that same ilk, and they hone their skills while they're in there. Well, they should be learning something. Except many times what they do is that they use the library to become and get their degree of becoming attorneys, and then file suit against these people, against the very victims that they victimized.
Yep. I think that there needs to be a lot of reforms in our country. Prisons is one of them.
And correctional facilities need to start correcting people or keep them.
Yes, absolutely. Otherwise, because here's the thing, how many people are repeat offenders? Most of them are. Most of them aren't a one-time offender. And something like this is so tragic. And she was a wonderful person. She taught kindergarten. So I do think we have a video of that.
Yeah, she was. This will break your heart.
This photo of a teacher taping a mask to a student's face.
Back to school should be driven by parents, not Democrat indoctrination.
This is not right.
Kids are back in the classroom, and Democrats, they're back to their propaganda, pushing woke ideology like gender fluidity.
Gender is not binary, right? There's a spectrum.
Mandating vaccines.
This student vaccination requirement is a mandate, and there's really no other option.
Enforcing masks on our children.
Tonight, this photo of a teacher taping a mask to a student's face.
Back to school should be driven by parents, not Democrat indoctrination. Kids are back in the classroom, and Democrats, they're back to their propaganda, pushing woke ideology like gender fluidity.
Gender is not binary, right? There's a spectrum.
Mandating vaccines.
This student vaccination requirement is a mandate, and there's really no other option.
Enforcing masks on our children.
Tonight, this photo of a teacher taping a mask to a student's face.
Back to school should be driven by parents, not Democrat indoctrination. Kids are back in the classroom, and Democrats, they're back to their propaganda, pushing woke ideology like gender fluidity.
Gender is not binary, right? There's a spectrum.
But wait,
Mandating vaccines.
This student vaccination requirement is a mandate, and there's really no other option.
Enforcing masks on our children.
Tonight, this photo of a teacher taping a mask to a student's face.
Back to school should be driven by parents, not Democrat indoctrination.
There's two little boys and a Mr. Fletcher.
Kids are back in the classroom, and Democrats, they're back to their propaganda, pushing woke ideology like gender fluidity.
That was very heartbreaking, Bill. She was such a lively teacher, and you can tell that she really cared about her kids, and that was just a sad story.
Just singing to her students and teaching them, little nursery rhymes and things of this nature. She was such a wonderful person, and an heiress to $1 billion corporation or funds, and did this was this if this guy had done this on purpose, if he had picked her out for whatever reason, did he know that? Because he could have used her as a tool to get money rather than just kill her. Apparently, he killed her almost immediately. So what was the purpose? Why do this? But and of course, a lot of people ask, why is she jogging at 4 o'clock in the morning in Memphis?
I don't know. Maybe she has to get up really early to.
Well, it could be, and I know that it's hard to carry self-defense equipment when you're pretty scantily clad, running in your running clothes. But she should have had. She really should have had something.
Yes, I agree with you, Bill.
Hindsight's 20/20. I understand that, and we're not casting aspersions. But honest to goodness, there needs to be more situational awareness, especially for you ladies.
Yes. Well, I will say that I think that most of us have a false sense of security, but living in Memphis, I don't know. I mean,
Memphis hadn't had a good reputation in years, and
No.
I'm sorry to say that because I'm a graduate of Ole Miss, and Memphis was like 60 miles away. It was a great destination to go for weekend outings and go to football games up there. A lot of our football games were played at Memphis Memorial Stadium, so we were there constantly. It's a great city, easy to get around. It's one of those cities that's kind of laid out in a grid.
yeah.
So if somebody says you can go up this street to go to this street, you know exactly. It's easy to get to wherever you're going, and of course they're also famous for great barbecue. Also rhythm and blues music,
Yes.
and Stax
Graceland.
records and things of that nature.
And Graceland.
Graceland, yeah, you got the king that lived there. Everybody that goes there, I haven't been there yet, it's on my bucket list. Everybody's always surprised at how small it is. So
It is small, but it's like, I don't know. It's pretty cool. I will say it was probably one of my favorite tours I've ever done.
And I understand it. I haven't seen it. I understand the movie was pretty good too. It came out this summer about Elvis.
I have not seen it yet, Bill.
Actually, his daughter said that she almost thought that was Dad. She
Oh,
said
wow.
she said it was a fantastic performance. A Canadian actor.
Okay.
So
I'll have to check it out.
I'd like to see it myself, because when I first saw it, the trailers on it, I said, is Hollywood going to try to destroy another American icon? Because they're really good at that.
Yes,
and
they are.
I was hoping I hope they'll really tell a good story about Elvis, and that all of us are, human, can succumb to whether it's drugs or alcohol or any other bad things that happen. I remember one time hearing his chauffeur, who happened to be his cousin, was interviewed on a late night talk show that NBC used to have called The Tomorrow Show. It came on right after The Tonight Show. And a fellow named Tom Snyder, who actually worked here in Savannah at WSAV once upon a time before he got a job in Atlanta and then went on to network fame. And Tom was an excellent interviewer. And he had this kid on, and he talked about some of the foibles that Elvis came across, and he said did he fall for this and this, or and he said whether or not it was girls throwing their hotel keys up on the stage.
And those were probably actually keys at that time.
Yeah, they were physical keys. Yeah, they didn't have any. There weren't any electronic keys in those days. But he said, Mr. Snyder said, you have to understand something. That Elvis faced more temptations in a day than most of us face in a lifetime.
That does not surprise me.
Yeah, so really.
He lived a fast life.
If you think you want, I remember one time they asked Bill, one of the comedians. It was used to be on the on Saturday Night Live, and went on to a great solo career, and said, do you recommend to people to be? Everybody says they want to be rich and famous. And he said, try rich first.
Yeah.
See how that works for you. And then try the famous part, because when you see if you think it's so glamorous to be rich and famous, why do these people have so many problems? Whether it's drugs, whether it's bad relationships with wives or husbands, or any other name your.
Well, also being around people that you don't know if they're your friend because you're famous and rich, or if because they actually like you as a person. That would be really hard. And I think we've seen a lot of that, especially with some of, these big stars that you think are like Robin Williams. That was tragic.
Yeah.
And you would have never thought, because he was so funny. He was so
loss. What a loss.
Yeah.
What a terrible, terrible loss that he was going through. Had so many demons.
But you would have never known.
No.
So I think that's a big thing with people being rich and famous, is you don't know who's your friend for the right reasons and who's kind of using you for your fame and your money.
But speaking of which, there have been numerous stories and movies about people who were rich and a romance started, but they didn't want the other person to know just exactly how much, but they weren't famous, but they were quite wealthy. And they went through these little exercises to see, does he or she really love me, or do they love my money? So they don't reveal exactly how much, they reveal their wealth in the bottom line.
That's probably smart in the beginning, Bill. Very smart move. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
The one thing that I will say about Elvis is that he would never talk about his politics. And I feel like our Hollywood elite could definitely take a note from that these days, because I think it's important for them to stay neutral and just be able to provide entertainment.
And quite the entrepreneur. As well as I don't think people realize, just how brilliant he was, and how much he appreciated when he had bodyguards and things of that nature. He would always buy his bodyguards Cadillacs, things of police that were guarding him.
He's very generous.
And he was, in fact, there was a telethon going on. I think he was in let's just say it was Philadelphia.
Okay.
And he turns the TV on in the hotel room, and he sees this telethon going on at the time, and said they were like $10,000 short. Now in the 1950s, that's a pretty good hunk of change today. But in the 1950s, that would actually buy something. And he called up and told them who he was, and they were a little skeptical. Yeah, sure, this is Elvis. But he said, how much? He said, you're not short $10,000 anymore. And turns out it was the real deal. It was the real Elvis. They got the real $10,000. I mean, he was
very generous.
He was that kind of guy. And another story that his chauffeur told was, he said they were getting out. When Elvis has left the building, said he would get in the limousine, and the first time he drove away from the fans. He said, he thought he wanted to get away out of there.
Yeah.
And he said he was very polite about it, but he made it in no uncertain terms. Said, don't ever do that again. Said, the only reason that I'm here is because of them. So, I want you to at least drive through, we'll do a little slow drive through. And in those days, you didn't have to worry about somebody, throwing ink on you or
being super crazy.
Or shooting, yeah.
Yeah. They just wanted to maul you to death because they loved you so much.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Tear your clothes off.
Yeah. I wasn't going to say it. Okay, and we will be right back, and we'll be talking about...
Well, there's a... we were talking about education a little bit earlier. Apparently, the American Federation of Teachers president has her boxer in her panties in a wad over an editorial in the Wall Street Journal, and she's fighting back.
As your governor, I promise you, whatever challenges come our way, I will always lead the California way.
You are
I say that's the California way.
You guys are really awesome. Thank you so much.
Based on compassion.
I mean, if we're going to be realistic, they'd pay you to be homeless here.
Common sense. Clean and sober is one of the biggest damn mistakes this country's ever made. We all need to self-medicate periodically. Telling the truth. Telling the truth. Treasuring our diversity.
It says to hit my...
Telling the truth. Following science. Protecting our planet.
Love like yours will surely come my way. Hey, hey, hey.
Gavin Newsom. Courage through crisis.
My fellow Americans, it looks like some things have changed. Are we doing a good enough job teaching our children what America is and what she represents?
You want an abortion? Get one!
Younger parents aren't sure that an appreciation of America is the right thing to teach modern children.
We're not going to make America great again. It was never that great.
When I drive into a neighborhood and there are American flags, it's a message of white supremacy.
I'm warning of an eradication of the American memory that could result in an erosion of the American spirit.
We need to completely dismantle the police department.
If we forget what we did, we won't know who we are. We've got to do a better job of getting across that America is freedom, and freedom is special and rare. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of enterprise. As long as we remember our first principle and believe in ourselves, the future will always be ours. Ours was the first revolution in the history of mankind that truly reversed the course of government, and with three little words: we the people. We the people are free. Once you begin a great movement, there's no telling where it'll end.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
And we're glad you're here. Tell all your friends. We're going to be able to take phone calls here pretty soon.
Yes, we are. And we are about to get real about the teachers' unions.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, you folks in Seattle, if you happen to stumble across us, you don't have to worry about you. You don't get the kids up for school this morning. They can sleep late because the teachers are on strike. Higher pay, smaller classes, COVID-19 protection.
I'm sorry.
Didn't they have a chance to work this out over the summer?
We've been doing this. We've been going through this with these teachers unions for over 2 years. I mean, Florida seems to have it figured out.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the problem? I don't understand. I have a hard time with these.
The Chicago teachers were out, and every time we turn around, they said, of all the billions or trillions of dollars that they put into this COVID program, they said something like only 10% of the money's been spent. So where is it? And Seattle, what about that? What about the $1 billion or so you took away from your police department? Why don't you use some of that money? But even though, like the late great Paul Harvey used to say, even though the teachers aren't teaching or on strike, they are still teaching. So this biting letter has been written after an editorial that was published in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend. American Federation of Teachers President Randi Weingarten, who is the north end of a southbound horse, tore into critics who blamed her for the pandemic-era school lockdowns and dramatically harming the educational process. Have you seen the stats on how far behind the kids are now?
I think it's over 2 years, isn't it?
For the first time in history, we've had a 7% drop in math skills.
Which we didn't really have.
Drop in reading skills, and we weren't that good at either one to begin with, even though we need to spend more money on it.
This goes back to what we talked about earlier this week about how it doesn't matter how bad it is and how much it's not working. They just continue to ask for more money. It's like, it's not working. We need to figure something else out.
And it's Donald Trump's fault.
It always is.
So this biting letter that she sends, Weingarten slams the critics of the Wall Street Journal, Republican lawmakers, former President Donald Trump, his former Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, who was actually trying to get things fixed, and gives them by name, and also passing the blame on of mismanaging schools back then. We have, I don't know if they know it or not, we actually have video from over 2 years ago, even though that was a long time ago.
We have video in the last 2 years?
Yes. Wow. In 2020, when Donald Trump was saying, reopen the schools. They don't need to be closed. And what was the reaction then? Oh, he wants students to die. He wants teachers to die.
Well, and then when he said they weren't getting it, then they said, well, they're carriers, they're going to kill their grandma. I mean, they put so much fear into people over this stuff. It's insane. And the people that it hurt the most was our kids. And the fact that now they're going on strike again, I'm sorry, get rid of the unions. I think that they have done so much damage, and
they care about the teachers and not the students.
They care about money. They care about having their way, and they want to teach what they want to teach. They're just indoctrinating the kids anyway, so it's like, why don't we start over?
So the Wall Street Journal, the editorial, the op-ed was Randi Weingarten flunks the pandemic. And boy, she sure was ticked off about that. So she said the piece admonished her and others charging the nation's public schools for pushing COVID-19 pandemic school closures, said as long as she possibly could. And we know that through virtual learning, the kids were learning virtually nothing.
And that's the thing. Where's the big problem is that we don't hold anyone accountable. She has not been held accountable. The problem is they won't even say they made a mistake. They'll just keep saying, let's move on. Nothing to see here. Let's move on. They don't want to talk about the mistakes that they made or taking accountability for the fact that they were wrong.
If you ever want a permanent job where you cannot get fired for any reason whatsoever, get a job with the federal government. Apparently, we're coming up on the anniversary of 9/11, 21st anniversary of the attack on America. And no heads rolled after that. Nobody was fired. Nobody lost their jobs. Some got raises, or were what we call a lateral promotion of some sort. They were taken out of one job and they were put into another one and got another $10,000 or $20,000 raise. I'd like to work in a place where you get $20,000 or $30,000 raise. I'd like to make $30,000, much less get a raise of that much for being incompetent. Imagine how much they could make if they actually knew what they were doing.
Well, I think that's the thing. There needs to be more efficiencies in the government, but instead they create more inefficiencies. They make it more complicated. They don't make things easy. I will give the Georgia driver's license division credit here, because when I went there, it was very smooth, it was very fast, and they were very nice. So I will say that in Georgia, I appreciated the DMV, but in most government situations, I don't know if Bill will agree with me, but I had a great experience. But
not bad. I do want to compliment them also, apropos nothing, but I do want to compliment them on unemployment. Because when I applied for unemployment after my job was terminated at a local radio station here, when I went in there, it was about a 3-hour process. I had less trouble getting a top secret clearance when I was in the Army than I was applying for unemployment here. They took your picture, they did background checks, you had to fill out all these forms. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And then they said, and you have, before you can get it'll be at least 3 weeks before you start getting any money, because you have to go online every Sunday and and say 3 places where you've applied for work. And it's like, do what?
Well, the thing is, Bill, is if you're a person that's actually not looking for a job and you really have nothing else to do, it's not that big of a deal. But for people that are busy and that are like, it's very stressful to not have a job. I'm like trying to find one, but you're going to make me jump through all these hoops. It's a nuisance for people that are using it for the right reasons. For people that are using it for the wrong reasons, it's not that big of a deal. They have nothing else to do.
Yeah. So Randi Weingarten, who is the president of the American Federation of Teachers, and is really one of the most incompetent people around. The response that just touched off this with the paper, she openly, defiantly stated that she is, quote, used to enduring attacks from your editorial page, and recommended that the outlet, the Wall Street Journal, listen to the teachers who gave their all to help students and families weather a global pandemic that killed 1 million Americans and orphaned 200,000 kids. Oh, come on.
I would love to know where she got those numbers.
Well, the fact is that they just make this up.
Yes.
because they figure that nobody in the media is going to fact check them. If they say it, it's actually a thing. It's actually true because they said it.
Yeah, it's an alternate reality that they're creating, which is very fun for everyone else to live in when we like to hear facts and truth.
Because there's an organization that tries to put the media on the spot every year. They will create a fictional group. You know, let's say Americans for Saving Tree Leaves, and they will put together official letterhead. And back in the old days, they would fax these. They would come up with some sort of an agenda. They would have call a press conference, and say, you know, we want to get because tree leaves are extremely important. People shouldn't be raking them up and burning them. I mean, whatever it was, they would come up with some ridiculous premise.
It sounds ridiculous.
They would fax this to newsrooms all across the country. They would send a copy to the Associated Press, and they would hold this press conference, and all of these reporters and reporterettes would show up. And they have this big press conference, and then they tell them, you know, April Fool or whatever it was. But just to see that, you know, nobody actually goes back and said, there's no such organization. I can't find the existence of this organization. Nobody bothers to fact check anymore. They said it's easier to apologize later if they do that at all. If there's a headline in the front page of the New York Compost one day, and they find out a week later that the whole story was false, or there were 6 or 7 errors in it, where do they publish the apology or the correction of the errors? You know, page 6 by the eczema and the hemorrhoid ads or something like that.
Exactly, you can't find it.
A week later.
You can't find it. Well, I also heard that most people that go on a lot of news shows and are commentators, they're asked to, you know, talk about an article. Most of them don't even read the article that they're talking about. They only read the headline. So a lot of times they don't even know what they're talking about. So I think that's interesting. They only care about the narrative they're trying to push. That's it.
You will go down into a story if a Democrat steps out of line, or some liberal steps out of line. If you read a story about them that have been arrested or something, it may be 3 pages in before they mention, by the way, they're a Democrat, or they may not mention it at all.
Yes.
But if it's a Republican or a conservative, that's the first line practically.
Well, fits their narrative, Bill. Whatever fits their narrative and makes the biggest splash. And the sad thing about it is that all it does is demonize people, and all it does is turn people against each other. And I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on in the media that I'd like to know the answers to, but I don't know if we'll ever get there, Bill.
Speaking of the Washington Compost, big headline in last night. There was breaking news last night that at Mar-a-Lago they found that Donald Trump had top secret information about nuclear weapons of a foreign power. Woo.
Oh my gosh, we're going to have to jump into that when we get back.
Sirree. Yes, don't go to work today. You need to hear this.
Reckless spending, driving up inflation, higher prices that hurt Georgians.
I'm trying to save $2, and Senator Raphael Warnock votes to spend almost $2 trillion.
$140 to fill my truck. And Senator Warnock voted to allow $140 million to be spent building a resort in Florida?
$15 for burgers. Senator Warnock voted to allow $15 million to be spent on a soccer stadium in New Jersey.
Tell Senator Warnock to stop voting for reckless spending. Stop.
Stop. Please stop.
Hi, this is Herschel Walker. I want to endorse Bruce Thompson as our new Labor Commission because he's going to do the best job you've ever seen for the great state of Georgia.
Listen, I'm standing here with the great Herschel Walker. We all know what's happened in our U.S. Senate. It's time for a change, and I 100% endorse Herschel Walker to represent Georgia and the United States as we take back our country for the people of Georgia and for the United States.
God bless.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
We're glad you're here. I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
And did you see the photograph that they had? I think it was Washington Compost and also all the other alphabet networks had a picture of these top secret documents that apparently that President Trump had carefully arranged on the floor. This is one of the most staged photographs I think I've ever seen in my life. This is exactly what this guy does. He goes out and he takes out top secret documents and strolls them all over the floor.
And I bet you when they showed up, they could tell exactly what story he was going to tell the media or what he was trying to do by how they were laid out.
So a judge has appointed a special master to look over this, and boy, the left has their boxers in a bunch once again, because why is this necessary? Well, one of the things that it's necessary for, you don't put the fox to guard the hen house.
Definitely not, and no one can trust this DOJ. They have been terrible.
Yeah, if you're on trial for murder, you don't get to be a member of the jury as well.
No.
For
good reason. For good reason.
For a good reason. And that's what they're trying to do. The DOJ says we don't need anybody special because we have our own other team that's going to be looking into this.
The same people that actually, and it's the same people that suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop. So it's weird how all of this stuff remains connected all the time.
It reminds me of that great scene at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they've got the Ark of the Covenant that's that's being put away somewhere, and Harrison Ford is asking. The chief investigator said, well, you don't realize what you have. You need to, and he said, don't worry, top men are looking into this. He said, who? He said, top men.
You don't need to know, Bill.
No,
you don't need to know.
No. So here we are. We got the DOJ that's looking into Donald Trump's. And if this was so important, if this was so vital that we had to have this, why did they wait 3 months? After they went in the first back in June, Trump said, take whatever you come on in, take whatever you want.
This is 19 months after he was president.
Exactly.
If it was that urgent, we would have seen this in the first year. So these people are just making stuff up. I think one good thing that did come out of this is that right now they are not allowed to use any of the documents that they took to prosecute Trump. So I think that to hold him criminally liable for anything. So I think that that's a good step in the right direction.
Well, God bless a U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon, who said that you're going to have a special envoy to look into this, or whatever term you use legally. And of course, the immediately BSDNC and the Communist News Network jumped right on this and said, she's a Trump-appointed judge. This is what we get for these Trump-appointed judges. Remember when we point out that there's an Obama or a Carter appointed or Clinton appointed judge, and they say, you're just
politicizing the court.
Exactly, because these people are now above reproach because they wear a black robe.
Well, tell that to Steve Bannon, who was just convicted in D.C. for nothing.
Yeah.
Well, this was in early August, so.
And they're trying to pull up some other stuff against him now.
Yeah.
It
never ends.
This is Groundhog Day all over again. Every time we turn around, for the entire 4 years that President Trump was the president, we heard from the Adam Schiff crowd. Adam Schiff, this guy's so low he could put on a top hat and walk under a snake. So he's up there every day. He's in front of the media saying, "We've got the goods on him. We've got some secret stuff. Boy, when this comes out, it's going to be something." You've been telling us that for 4 years, Adam. Where is it? Nobody ever asked him, including the Fox people. Never asked him.
Nope.
Where is it? Show it. You want him behind bar? You want him perp walked out of the White House in an orange jumpsuit so badly? Show me the money.
That's the thing. We're going on I think we're almost at 6 years on all of this, and they've never been able to get him on anything.
Ever since he came down the escalator.
Yeah.
I mean, the day he was elected, there was
it was prior to that.
Yeah, there was an editorial saying, now the impeachment process begins. And we haven't heard a word. We haven't heard an impeachment word out of Republicans since this cretin that we have now in office, who has done nothing but destroy America, including, of course, that god awful speech he made the other day. Then he walks it back the next day. He's doing it what in a place what looks like a lot of people are calling. I love Glenn Beck's on the Blaze is calling this the Fourth Reich. And when you saw that speech on last Thursday night in that god awful setting, I don't know who decides we're going to have these said they needed Albert Speer. Albert Speer would have been very, very pleased with this. If you don't know who Albert Speer is, if you've only studied history of the last 30 years, I'll explain to you who he is. He was Hitler's go-to guy for setting up rallies. When you see these pictures of these 50, 60,000 people in a stadium and all these Nazi flags hanging down, these 50-foot banners, Nazi banners hanging around in spotlights, one of these sky spotlights sweeping the sky. Albert Speer was the guy that was behind all of that. It was, glitz and glitter.
Well, there's a lot that goes behind. There's a lot of thought that goes into how these things are set up and why and the purpose of it. So
if you've taken one look at that now, when you look at the wide shot, it's not so bad when you see the blue. You got the red. Yeah. It's a little less intense.
Yeah. And
you got the blue on the side. And they kept saying it was red, white, and blue. I never saw the white part, but
red, white, and black is what I saw. But
yeah, well, as a matter of fact, and white is would be racist. But
you're right.
We have, from the wide shot, it didn't look too bad. But when you go to the tight shot, where you've got nothing but that intense red behind him, and unfortunately, remember one time he said he would never use the military as props.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You've got two Marines, but I'd have been proud of those guys. I know they would have been given dishonorable discharges, but I sure would have been proud of them if they'd have walked off.
And I wouldn't have blamed him, Bill.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have blamed him at all. That was a terrible speech that he gave, and just so
and the media
divisive.
is standing up for it, including our friends. I didn't know they'd gone on hiatus for the summer, but The View is back.
Oh, I was so disappointed to see that they were coming back for another season. I was like, who listens to these women?
And he said, and got Joyless Behar sitting there saying, why was everybody criticizing this speech when he loves everybody? Didn't sound like he loved everybody. It's interesting when he gave all of that, all this rhetoric, hating about how horrible ultra MAGA people were, and then the next day when Peter Doocy asked him, "Are Republicans the people that voted for Donald Trump? Are they evil people?" Oh no! I wasn't talking about all of them. I was just talking about a few, and but people that voted for Donald Trump, they thought they were voting for they were voting their conscience or whatever, and then he gives a speech on Labor Day. And says the same thing that he said Thursday night, and then tries to walk it back once again. So now the Washington Compost comes out with this big story last night. They've got this breaking news that says that some nuclear secret. He actually had top secret stuff that was above top secret. There was a class above top secret. He had information on nuclear facilities of a foreign nation. Well, that could have been Canada.
Well, not only that, he had all of that information as president.
And yeah, the president has access to everything.
Well, I think that's the other thing that people don't understand. He's probably one of the only people that has access to every top secret classification, where the other people that are involved, it's like split up. So they don't have access to everything. They only have portions of things.
They said only 5 or 6, people might have actually had access to something like this, have that kind of classification. Okay. And I would be glad that he had information on the nuclear facilities of a foreign country, especially if it was China or Russia or North Korea.
Well, I don't know why they're making such a big deal about documents that he took. Every single president that has ever been president has taken them.
He didn't take them. He and Melania didn't pack up those boxes themselves and take them down to Mar-a-Lago. And if they were there for 19 months, why is it so important that we have them now? What was the bit? If they're telling us it's a crucial situation now, why wasn't it crucial the day after he took them?
Well, because now they're thinking about the 2022 and 2024 election and what October surprise could be coming their way. Gets exhausting, doesn't it, Bill?
It absolutely does. And for these people to have their shorts and a wad over it is just pathetic. Because I want our president to, at least one that's competent, to have access to all of our enemies' information. We spend a great deal of money on spies, CIA-wise and elsewhere, trying to get information on the bad guys.
Yeah, well, I also think that there was some Crossfire hurricane documents that they didn't want him to have. I think that plays a big role in it because that impacts Biden, Obama, Hillary. They're all in those documents.
A couple of years ago, a great book came out, and the author was here for the Savannah Book Festival, which is one of the best in the world. Don't miss it. It comes up every February.
Okay.
And it is truly one of the best book festivals around, and we get great people here. We've had Brad Thor, we've had James Patterson, and you just named it, Stephen King, David Baldacci. I mean, they're here all the time for these events. And this guy wrote a book called Betrayal in Berlin, and it was about the fact that right after, during the height of the Cold War, the Berlin Wall's going up, and President Eisenhower was extremely worried about our lack of, the CIA was in its very infancy, and he was worried that when the Cold War was ramping up, and I mean it was really getting frigid, that we didn't have enough information on the Soviets, of the Soviet Union, and that our spy capabilities were really bad and theirs weren't. And it was an unfortunate set of circumstances that we were allied with Russia during the Second World War. So a lot of their spies and secret agents were here. It was because they were our allies. So they were here. They were actually walking around the Pentagon. They were walking around Congress, and they never left. But so they were already here and established. So they were sending out secret information about us back to Khrushchev and his Confederates all the time. We didn't have such a reciprocal agreement with them. So Eisenhower was extremely worried. So we decided we needed to get some way to find out what the Soviets were up to. So we decided to tap into their communication systems. And the only way to do it, they decided they were going to build a tunnel in Berlin to where the junction boxes were for all the Soviet communications. But the thing was to keep it secret. What are they doing? If you're digging a tunnel, that's a lot of construction work that's going on. A lot of dirt is coming out. What is that for? Keeping this thing a secret was something. They had a Soviet mole in that system. The Russians knew all about this tunnel from the time we started it. And the book is called Betrayal in Berlin. It is outstanding. And it all goes back to the fact that we were trying to find out what the hell the Soviets were up to, and to keep an eye on them, to maybe if they decided to start World War III, we would at least be able to come sort of counteroffensive. Betrayal in Berlin. Highly recommend. Great read.
I'll have to check it out, Bill. I have not read that book.
Okay.
I'm not a big history buff like you.
I'll bring you a copy.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Well, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
Mm-hmm. We could use it.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is your governor speaking.
Today's training evolution, dogfighting, taking on the corporate media.
The rules of engagement are as follows. Number 1, don't fire unless fired upon, but when they fire, you fire back with overwhelming force.
Does it say that in the bill? I'm asking you to tell me what's in the bill.
Number 2, never ever back down from a fight.
If I could complete the question, though.
So you're going to give a speech or ask a question?
Number 3, don't accept their narrative.
It's wrong. It's a fake narrative. I just disabused you of the narrative, and you don't care about the facts. It's why people don't trust people like you, because you peddle false narratives.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's turn up.
It's Independence Day, so let's talk about what's going on in America.
Freedom is under attack in your state. Dictator Ron DeSantis incredibly lets you walk around without masks. That tyrant allows your kids to go to school during the pandemic, year 2 or 4, or who the hell knows. I urge you living in Florida to join the fight. Or join us in California, where we'll take the money you earn and give it to people who don't work. Visit San Francisco, where you can walk through human feces. If you're lucky, you might step on a syringe. Check out Los Angeles, where gas is so expensive, your kids only need to skip a meal or 2 or 10 to afford it. California, where freedom means lockdowns for you, while I go to the places you can't afford. Don't let them take your freedom. Come to California, where we'll take it, along with your money.
Georgia's the worst, according to Stacey Abrams.
I am tired of hearing about being the best state in the country to do business when we are the worst state in the country to live. We are the worst state in the country to live.
Oh, bless her heart. Georgia leads the nation because Brian Kemp is governor. He reopened Georgia first, brought thousands of jobs, and Kemp's cut taxes to help families deal with Biden's inflation. Brian Kemp's kept Georgia the best place to live.
Than anything else? You realize that? The point is, we ask so much of you. So much of you. I've not...
Welcome back to Get Real America. That scene of Trump rallies never gets old.
Yeah, we're glad you're here, and we start the second half of our show this morning on this Wednesday as we get ready. I have heard practically, Brittany, nothing, and I mean nothing, on the 9/11 memorials or celebrate. I hate to say celebrations, but it's not memorial services or anything else that's coming up this Sunday.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything either, Bill. Like nothing has come up in the news.
21st anniversary of 9/11 and crickets so far. If you've heard something, have your people get back to our people.
Yes, we would love to hear what's going on. But they also canceled it, I think, the last 2 years, haven't they?
So a lot of it has, yeah.
Yeah.
But
so you would think there would be a big memorial service this year regarding 9/11.
Do you know what's going on in Pennsylvania? They got a big, they talk about hopefully that we in Georgia can get rid of one of the empty suits that we have up there in the Senate, Raphael Warnock, and replace him with Herschel Walker.
Yes.
They are spending millions. Holly Weird is sending millions of dollars into. They've got an ad running now about how Herschel put a gun to his wife's head
and threatened to kill her. I mean, it's bad.
I don't remember that story.
I don't either. It sounds very.
I haven't heard anybody dispute that either. And that's to the Herschel campaign. Wake up. Hello.
We are in election season. We're less than 70 days out.
We're 61 days out.
Yep.
Today is 61 days out from the election, okay? Herschel people, step up to the plate and fight back against this thing. Start learning how to street fight, for God's sake. It is just
they need to do something.
Unbelievable, the money that they're spending on the left and the crap that they're sending out, and that the Herschel people are not punching back like they ought to.
No.
This is garbage. Raphael Warner did try to run over his wife. He ran over her foot.
Yes, and there's video of that.
We got it.
So, I mean, yeah, I will say Herschel's campaign, they need to get it together. They need to act like they need to win an election.
Pretend like you're going to. Yeah, please. And I don't care how much money you spend in Hollywood. We've known Herschel 50 years.
Well, and I think that that's the thing. People in Georgia also need to recognize that, okay, we gave Warnock a chance. We can debate that, but we gave him a chance. We've seen what he's going to do. Voting 98% of the time with Pelosi and Biden is not something that Georgians can align with. Let's give Herschel a try. If he doesn't do a good job, then we replace him. But we can't continue down this path. Georgia is super important that we have at least one Senate seat as a Republican.
So, up in Pennsylvania, they are trying to make great capital of the fact that Mehmet Oz is not from Pennsylvania, that he's from New Jersey.
Well, I mean, but who's from where they started? I mean, really, there's not a lot of us.
Well, once upon a time, you had to live in a state, here in Georgia at least, it
Yeah.
was the law, you had to live here at least 5 or 6 years before you could run for a congressional
office.
or Senate seat. But is the Hildebeest from New York? When they moved to New York, she started running for Senate and got elected, unfortunately. Is she from New York?
No, she is not.
Isn't she from Arkansas?
She is.
I thought. Interesting.
How that works out.
You know, once again, to point out the obvious double standard. So they have this John Fetterman character who should not be allowed to run. I'm sorry, whether you like him or not. He is not qualified for the office. He is not qualified physically. He just had a stroke, and he's actually worse than Biden when it comes to knowing where he is and what
he's talking about.
Putting together 2 sentences.
Yeah, I saw some video come out, and he can't even hold it together for like a 3-minute speech. It's pretty bad. It's cruel. Whoever is continuing to allow him to run or is not having that conversation with him of like, for health reasons, you should not run. It's cruel.
Once upon a time, I think once upon a time the Democrats were on our side. At least they were, they were kind of pro-American. They might have had a different agenda, but at least they were not, traitors and not trying to actually destroy the country, even though they wanted to take over permanently. But when Lyndon Johnson was president, when he made that famous speech that he was not going to run again for president, and he was elected by a landslide. That was right after the Kennedy assassination. He was running against Barry Goldwater, and they demonized him so unmercifully. I think Barry Goldwater may be the best president we never had, but he won in a landslide over Goldwater. But so you would think he would have won a re-election easily. He said that he had this famous press conference or speech from the Oval Office where he said he would not run again. Now, by this time, the Vietnam War was going very, very badly. There were protests all over in our college campuses and things of that nature. Cal Jerkley and all the communists that run that asylum were out there demonstrating, and they called us at Ole Miss asking us what we were doing. He said, "We were going to class."
We were learning stuff.
Yeah, we were actually learning stuff.
Yeah.
Instead of running around, with our hair down to our butts and all those people that never took a bath that I could tell, running around familiar with every 4-letter word except soap. And so they're out there trying to tell us what to do. But things were not going well for Johnson. His poll numbers were way down, and he said he wasn't going to run again for office. I have a feeling, and this story may come out, and maybe it already has, and I just haven't seen it over the decades. I'll bet you that a lot of the Democrat senators and his people and everything else got him into one of these rooms and said, "Lyndon, look, you're not going to win this next election. We're in trouble. You're in trouble. Finish out your term and get off stage." I will bet you that happened.
That's what we should be doing as a party, though, holding people accountable and also doing what's right. I mean, it is not right that he's running. They shouldn't have allowed Biden to run either. Let's be honest. What they're doing, it's putting everyone at risk.
With Biden, it's elder abuse.
Yes.
With John Fetterman, not that old, but you can tell his mental capacity is just not there.
Well,
You don't want him in the Senate. I'm sorry.
Well, not only that, for his personal well-being, like that's a lot of pressure, a lot of stress to be putting on someone that just had a stroke. I think it's cruel. I don't think that he should be running at all.
He really shouldn't. And it is sad. And Mehmet Oz has given up a lot to run and show how much appreciation he has for this country, and
especially as a Republican.
Especially he wants to save this country. He had to give up his television show.
Yep.
So that was a lot of money.
Yep.
He is a thoracic surgeon, so he can't go in the operating room now simply because there's too much work to do on the campaign trail.
Yep.
So he sacrificed his profession as well as his avocation in order to run for the Senate because he saw how the bad direction this country was going, and he also wanted to show his appreciation because he's first generation American. His parents came here legally, jumped through all the hoops of fire that was necessary in order to become a citizen, and he appreciates what this country has done, and he wants to give back. And I think he's extremely sincere. He would be an excellent senator, and we actually need people in the Senate who know the medical profession.
That's important. We have Rand Paul, that's it, and he's the only one. And then people are questioning, well, why does he have the right to say anything? It's like, he's a doctor.
He's an MD, he's an ophthalmologist, and he is an MD. And we have Buddy Carter here that represents our congressional district here in Georgia. He's a pharmacist by trade. So when it comes to knowing about fentanyl or anything else or these other drug programs, he is actually able to get in the well and explain to people what these narcotics do, what these different drugs do, and what we need to do as far as coming up with pharmaceutical things, because they've just signed, as you know, the Anti-Inflation Act, which is almost as funny as saying, the Obamacare.
Yeah, I was going to say, so it's
supposed to be reducing our cost. So it's not only going to reduce inflation, but they said it's going to cost less. You're going to spend less money for your prescription drugs. How are they going to do that? These people live in such a fantasy world. They think they can just sign a piece of paper and just instantly say, this drug is going to cost less for you.
But when they do that, Bill, they're putting everyone at risk, because then pharmaceuticals, number one, are like, we're not going to play your game. But number two, you create a black market for things, and maybe that's how fentanyl and stuff will start getting into these everyday drugs that people use, and then what kind of havoc is that going to create? So I think people really need to think through what that really looks like and the consequences of, it sounds nice to have cheaper drugs, but it's not the right way to go about it.
No, it's not. However, coming up next, we'll talk about I hope this is still going on. There's a youth football cheerleading league up in North Carolina that's got a raffle going because they need to raise money for their wrestling team and for their cheerleaders. And so they're raffling off a rifle, an AR-15 type rifle. And don't you think people have their shorts in a wad over this one? That's coming up next.
Wasteful Washington spending is killing us with inflation and sky-high prices on groceries and gas. Senator Raphael Warnock voted to allow hundreds of millions of dollars of COVID relief funds to be squandered on a luxury resort in Florida, a New Jersey soccer stadium, a ski area in Iowa. Tell Senator Warnock to start voting against reckless spending to stop inflation. Georgia families need cheaper gas and food, not frivolous luxuries in other states.
First of all, what I can do to make things better is bring people together. I love this country. I believe in peace through strength. If we have no strength, we're gonna have no peace. I believe in Back in the Blue. I believe in the Constitution. I believe that everybody should have a chance to have their faith. Do we have problems? Yes. Can we solve them? Yes. Georgia is my family. The United States is my family. So I'm gonna fight and take care of them. I'm Herschel Walker, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
We're glad you're here. Happy Wednesday to you here on Get Real America. I'm Bill Edwards.
And I'm Brittany Brown.
We have a group up in North Carolina, that youth football group. They need money for their football cheerleaders. They need money for their wrestling team. So they've started a raffle, and they're going to be giving away a rifle.
You know, I think that that's a great way to raise money, Bill. Everyone wants a rifle.
Yes, and I want to know why that's such a big deal. But boy, they sure have got a lot of people upset over the fact that, oh, this is a weapon that kills children.
Well, are those people putting up anything for them to raffle?
As far as I know, not.
People shouldn't complain. Unless they're going to do something else, then people should be allowed to raise funds however they need to.
This is such a ridiculous premise that this football that a rifle is some sort of an evil device. It's only evil if you got evil people using it, like anything else. The guy who drove that car through a Christmas parade last year, that was a story. You might have missed the story because maybe only had it for a couple of days.
Yep.
But he goes through and he kills about 6 people.
Injures a lot more.
And injured and maimed a lot more.
Yes.
Driving through with his Ford Explorer. And so far, the Ford CEO has not been called before Congress to ask why his vehicle was used in such a way. What was their advertising policy? Because Marty Daniel, who owns Daniel Defense down here, has been called before Congress because it turns out that one of our media facilities here in Savannah decided that to find out who made the rifle that killed the kids in Uvalde, Texas, and it turned out to be a Daniel Defense weapon, which also a lot of our military carries as well to protect the rest of us.
Yeah, and the thing that Marty Daniel said was that, you know, it should be the people we hold accountable, not the gun. And I absolutely agree with him. There's been a lack of accountability in our culture and our society for a very long time. And I think that that's what is missing from American culture today, and why we have people that think that they can just go destroy people's stuff and it's totally fine. They can go into a Target, they can go into a CVS and just take whatever they want and leave because it's their right. What are you going to do about it? Mm-hmm. I don't have to be accountable for being a bad person.
If it's less than $1,000, we don't need to prosecute it. You know. So why do you think all these CVS stores and Walgreens and Targets are closing in many of these urban areas, among others? Because they can't afford to stay open. You can't afford for people to walk in and take out $900 worth of stuff every time we turn around. You know what the profit margin is on a lot of these products? Do you know what the profit margin is, or how razor thin the profits are?
Well, and who does this hurt, Bill? What communities does this hurt typically?
Usually the people that can least afford it.
Exactly. So they're going to have less access to things because they're going to be closing down all these stores. I know Target closed a bunch of stores, and you know, people don't understand that that's how these minority communities are impacted, is it's just going to give them less access and make their lives a lot harder. They're not going to be able to walk down the street. They're actually going to have to make an effort to go out and get the things that they need.
Things that happened here in Savannah, this is about 10 years ago. They were complaining about a food shortage area here in Chatham County in Savannah and in the urban area. They called it a food desert. There was no grocery store in their area.
Okay.
They would have to travel, many miles to go to buy groceries. So Food Lion built a beautiful new store in the urban community. It was open for about 9 months before they had to close it down because they said more food walked out and more products walked out unpaid for than were paid for.
Wow.
They couldn't afford to keep it open anymore.
That's crazy.
And yet we don't hear the people of the community itself react. Just like the police will always tell you, that they go in. Who's hurt worse in the urban community by defunding the police or anything else? It's the average citizen.
Yep.
And they're saying, we're afraid to live here, and we're so afraid because of crime. And then when the police come in to investigate and say, did anybody see anything? It's silent as the Sphinx.
No one will talk.
And so who do they fear more?
The police? No. The criminals.
They fear the criminals.
The criminals.
Because what was the expression that they use? A little rhyme ditty said, snitches wind up in ditches with stitches.
I have not heard the ditches part.
Yeah. So
it's a little dark though.
And many, it was in many cases, and sometimes it wasn't even stitches. Sometimes it was coffins. So they kept their mouth shut, and the police say, we can't do it without your help.
Yeah, there's nothing they can do. But I think that's the other thing. You used to have police that police their own communities. Now we have police that are commuting in to like Savannah, and they don't live in those neighborhoods, which I think is a challenge. I think it's better for them to know the police in their neighborhoods.
When I was growing up here as a kid, you walked downtown, you saw police officers walking around. That was their beat.
Yeah.
The police beat, they call it. They were walking around downtown, strolling into stores, and wasn't any problem with crime. You felt very safe. They had their job. They had the job to do, and they did it. My father was a theater manager here, and we have a very famous theater, the Lucas Theater downtown, that has been renovated about 20 years ago. And thank God we saved it. It was on the wrecking ball list several times, but we finally saved it. But Dad was manager there back in the 30s and 40s, and his assistant manager went back one night to get something that he had forgotten in the office, and some burglar had stowed away in the place, attacked him with a knife.
Oh my gosh.
He managed to get out safely, and one of the ways he did it, he was on the office is on the mezzanine, and outside of the mezzanine there is one of those oval cutouts that you can look down into the lobby. He actually leaped over. This guy was chasing him. He actually leaped, and he didn't break anything or hurt himself or sprain an ankle, but that saved his life perhaps.
Yeah.
He jumped to his safety, runs out. There's a policeman right outside. Guy comes in and arrests him. You'd run for 10 miles to find one now.
Yeah, they're not
and
out.
They wouldn't be walking around downtown either.
Nope, they're always in their car. They're not really out walking a beat, as you would say.
Exactly. So guns are simply a tool, one way or the other, and it's the person behind them that. So this youth football league. This is in North Carolina. There's a lot of hunting that goes on here in the sunny South. And the AR-15 was designed in 1958, called an Armalite rifle. It doesn't stand for assault rifle. And people are still calling them assault rifles. Assault rifles are fully automatic. These are not. These are semi-automatics. And the media usually gets that wrong. They have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to weapons most of the time in self-defense.
No, because none of them own them or want people to own them.
Exactly. So. And so they're totally vacuous when it comes to that information. So they're trying to demonize the weapon itself, and they've got and the media's done a great job of terrifying people.
Yes.
With things of this nature. So you've got a lot of people that are against this, and they said, well, okay, then donate some money to it, because we need the funds. We need something, and people would love that. I'm gonna buy a ticket. I don't know. I can find out how much these tickets are. I hope they're still selling this thing. Fortunately, they haven't caved in to all the negative publicity they've been getting, because that's what happens in many cases.
Yes.
And is that we keep caving in like a cheap mattress when we get a little cold wind blown on us.
Well, and that's the thing that Republicans need to learn, is to not apologize. Every single person that's ever apologized, they still come after you. They're not ever done with you.
You cannot apologize enough. Ask the late, Don Imus, who was taken off the air. He made some jokes about a black girls basketball team, and made some jokes about them. And I'm telling you, the Vigoro hit the Mixmaster. All of a sudden, you've got Al Charlatan coming out against him. Okra Windbag comes out against him. Has the girls' basketball team on the air talking about him, and he gets taken. He was suspended for like 6 months.
Oh wow!
And he has an Imus whatever you think of him personally, had a ranch that he for underprivileged kids, and he raised a lot of money. Helping out underprivileged youth and things of that nature, and yet he got his knees bloody apologizing. This was said kind of in jest. When they say something that is just absolutely hideous and turn around and say, well, I didn't, I apologize, or I was just joking. I was just joking.
Or I never said that.
Yeah.
You just deny it.
And we're supposed to, and they just go on. But you cannot apologize enough to these people. You cannot satisfy them no matter what you do, because Imus tried it, and you're never forgiven for what you've done with this crowd.
No, they'll just keep coming after you, and they will just keep destroying your reputation. If you stand up, you don't allow them to cancel you. And I think that's what people have got to start doing. Stop apologizing.
So they're trying to take our guns away, and this is just another example of it. And just to say, what if you, and then they call Marty Daniel up, of Daniel Defense, before Congress and asked him about his advertising practices. Do you think he was actually advertising the fact that you could use his weapon to kill students? To kill kids?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Do you think that the Ford Motor Company manufactured their car so that they could run through Christmas parades running people over?
No.
Of course not. But yet they want, I went back to the fact that you used to talk about, cigarettes, and how they told the cigarette manufacturers that we want you to put pictures of cancerous lungs on your package. Could you imagine if they went to the car dealers and said, we want you to put big banners up showing these car wrecks with dead bodies lying all over the street and blood everywhere and smashed windows and, windshields and things of that nature, and say, this is what could happen to you if you buy this product?
When do they get to dictate?
The same thing with the guns.
They don't get it.
I guess they want dead people lying all over the street and school buildings with riddled with bullet holes, and say, this is what happens if you buy this gun.
Well, that's the thing, Bill. If they don't start having accountability for the person, then we're going to see them cancel video games. And I mean, it just goes on and on and on, and it will never end.
That, and boy, there's censorship for you.
Yeah, exactly.
the video game industry, boy, their lobby is something else. All right, coming up next,
we'll be talking about what's going on near you.
On the way.
The last 3 years, Georgia's been tested in ways we could never imagine. And it fell to Governor Brian Kemp to successfully lead us during these troubling times. Georgia is still first in the nation for business. Our unemployment rate is the lowest in state history. Today, people come to Georgia to succeed, start a business, raise a family. Kemp has always backed the blue, stopping the radical left from defunding local police. He passed a tough new election integrity bill that, as the governor likes to say, made it easy to vote and hard to cheat. And while some during COVID-19 shut down their economy, Kemp kept our schools and businesses open while keeping Georgians safe. A long list of accomplishments. Fighting human trafficking, increasing teacher pay, greater access to quality health care. A governor who works for Georgians. All of us. Governor Brian Kemp.
As your governor, I promise you, whatever challenges come our way, I will always lead the California way.
You are literally insane.
I say that's the California way.
You guys are really awesome. Thank you so much.
Based on compassion.
I mean, if we're going to be realistic, they pay you to be homeless here.
Common sense. clean and sober is one of the biggest damn mistakes this country's ever made. We all need to self-medicate periodically. Telling the truth. Telling the truth. Treasuring our diversity.
Success to hit my...
Telling the truth. Following science. Protecting our planet.
Love like yours will surely come my way. Hey, hey, hey.
Gavin Newsom. Courage through crisis.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown, and we're about to get real.
Yeah, we are. Apparently, executing criminals in South Carolina has become illegal.
What?
Hey.
What's going on in South Carolina?
A judge in Columbia has ruled that it is the method of execution in South Carolina is unconstitutional. So remember there was all sorts of controversy about this combination of drugs that they used to kill people humanely.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the victims of these people weren't killed humanely.
No.
Just like the Eliza over in Memphis. That wasn't very humane. Wonder what they're going to do with this guy.
I know. Well,
I hope they'll keep him this time.
I agree, and I think, I know that people don't believe in capital punishment and things like that, but I think at the end of the day, you really have to look at, there are certain crimes that do you ever come back from them? Like, are you a person that we can really allow to be in society or live the rest of your life in prison, or is it an eye for an eye?
A South Carolina judge has said that it's unconstitutional to execute people in South Carolina through these lethal injections.
So can you do it by firing squad?
And we've heard some horror stories.
Yes, absolutely.
Of the injection that didn't do the job. But they've considered going back to the electric chair, and they said, well, that's the cruel and unusual punishment. They have also said, and there are some states that used to have, including Utah
has a firing squad. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And also hanging. We haven't used that in a long time.
Yeah.
But Utah was the last state to use and to actually
execute someone with firing squad.
1976.
Yeah.
When they executed somebody by firing squad.
Yes, but also we have, this is probably not a topic we want to get into, but I mean with fentanyl, that's give them a lethal dose of fentanyl. You know what I mean? I mean, that's
we've got some very pretty little candy here.
Yeah.
We'd like you to sample for us. These are the everything beans like they had in Harry Potter.
Yes. So
every flavor beans. I'm sorry.
Yes. So I think that they could come up with better options. However, like you said, the people that are being executed have done horrible things to other people. And I don't think that any of us could even imagine the fear and how terrified people are based on what that person had done. So, you take someone like, now I'm not going to remember his name, Ted Bundy. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, he was evil.
Oh, he was.
And
looked like a choir boy.
Yeah, and there's a huge connection to Utah. I'm sure that you knew that. And for him, I'm like, I don't care how you kill him. He just needs to go. He's not a person that needs to live on this earth. What he did to women was awful. And then when he escaped from jail, he continued to do it until they caught him again. Mm-hmm. So,
This is one of the things that I don't understand from you liberals, and that is when you had Mayor de Blasio in New York.
My goodness.
During the pandemic, they decided we need to let prisoners, but we don't want prisoners to get COVID-19, so we're going to let them out of jail. Now, where that logic came from escapes me completely. But when they got out, they started committing more crimes. De Blasio has this press conference and he acts surprised. He said, we've been so humane in letting these people out, you would think that they wouldn't take advantage of it by going back to a life of crime, that they would be appreciative of what we've done for them.
They don't have anywhere to live.
What planet do they live on?
I don't know, Bill. I don't know that. I think that they live in, they think of the world as a utopia, and if they just do all of this nice stuff, that people will just do what they should do. That's not human behavior. That's not how it works. I mean, time and time again, like we talked about earlier, people are repeat offenders. There are some people that are just, there's something wrong with them. There's something that is off in their head, whatever it is. But I'm going to avoid going into a lot of them, but that they're just unexcusable, and there's nothing you can do to take it back.
No. And as far as this guy in Memphis goes, I hope he gets 30 days in the electric chair. That's exactly what he deserves for killing that pretty young woman who was such a wonderful member of the community, such a great teacher, so beloved. She leaves behind 2 young children.
That's awful. And not only that,
widower.
Exactly. And for what? For what reason?
For what?
I mean, I think that's the other thing that I don't understand. And if I could be in the mind of a criminal, I probably would, but it's a short-term whatever they're doing, but they're going to get caught. They're going to go to jail, and was it worth it at the end of the day? I mean, you even see people that get into these crimes of passion, and you're like, how did you think this was going to end for you? You thought you were going to get this insurance money from your husband's death, and that you were just going to live happily ever after? That's not how that works.
We've had a lot of that. The famous Murdoch case that's going on here in nearby us in Walterboro, South Carolina, of an attorney who murdered his family, or at least tried to, and make it some weren't successful. Then he tells his son that he wants him to kill him. And make it look like some sort of an accident, so his son would get this insurance money. I mean, this guy is a sleaze bag from way back.
Well, that's the other thing. He had corrupt practices from day one, right? And then when you can't cover up your tracks anymore, the crimes just continue to escalate, and then there's no going back. You're all in.
And so this judge in South Carolina, name is Joycelyn Newman, ruled a case involving 4th death row inmates against the state of South Carolina. She granted a declaratory and injustice relief for inmates, writing in 2021, South Carolina turned back the clock and became the only state in the country in which a person may be forced into the electric chair if he refuses to elect how he will die. And in doing so, the General Assembly ignored advances in scientific research and evolving standards of human decency. Shame that people that their victims didn't have human decency as well. But they said that the firing squads and the use of the electric chair are unconstitutional in the Palmetto State. But
how does that work?
Well,
so no one can be put to death in South Carolina now?
Because she says so. Her ruling found that said the state's use of firing squads and electrocution in violation of South Carolina's Constitution. Where that is, I don't know, and its prohibition on cruel, corporal, or unusual punishments. I guess you could say this under the cruel and unusual punishment category. Well, yeah.
Well, they were cruel.
And unusual.
And they deserve to be punished.
Yeah, they do. But at least, if nothing else, let's keep them behind bars.
Absolutely.
Just like this guy in Memphis should have still been in jail for what he did. Can you imagine, 16 years old, he tries to kidnap a prominent Memphis attorney, actually did a pretty good job of it, forces him to go to an ATM, withdraw money, finally got caught, and at least the attorney survived the ordeal, unlike the Eliza.
Well, that's the thing. I think if they hadn't have stopped and he hadn't have run into someone that he could flag that there was something going on, he could have very easily ended up in the same situation as Eliza. But I wonder if her being taken so early in the morning had something to do with part of his plan, so he didn't get caught this time.
Yeah, but they said there were witnesses, people saying the struggle going on.
Okay.
And they did have his uncle. His uncle said this family is a piece of work. He said everybody in this family is crazy.
Oh.
So I think he was the one maybe that turned him in or gave him information on where he was.
It was either the uncle or the brother.
He saw him scrubbing the car down, the van down that he'd used. Did he leave his? He left DNA behind at the scene.
On his sliders.
Run out of his sliders or flip flops or whatever it is was he was wearing to get the heck out of Dodge after he had subdued this woman.
It's an awful end to this case. I was really hoping that maybe they would find her alive, but very, very sad for the community in Memphis.
And we had talked earlier about how prisoners now have all this access to libraries where they can actually go on courses and become attorneys, and then sue their own and sue their victims. And this is a case of one of the inmates in the lawsuit.
Oh, no.
Is a fellow named Richard Bernard Moore. He was scheduled earlier this year to be the first person executed by firing squad in the state, and after the legislature added the option for prisoner executions. So why wasn't that a factor earlier? If the legislature said, okay, we can't do the lethal injection thing until they get that figured out on how to mix the chemicals or something, why didn't a judge or somebody rule that unconstitutional to begin with?
That's a great question, Bill. I'm not sure. And so,
but 3 inmates have brought this suit. 3 inmates have filed suit, and this judge has gone along with them. Okay.
That's the other thing. They sit in prison for so long too that they have time to do all of this.
Oh, they've got time on their hands like crazy. So it's just we had. You would think that if this is going to be a correctional facility, they would have courses for these guys to take, and in some cases they do. But correctional facilities need to learn to start how to correcting people. I've always thought that was a misnomer, a contradiction in terms. A correctional facility is these people get out and they are experts at what they were put in there for, because they get together with other inmates of the same ilk and wind up
perfecting their craft, if you will.
Yeah, they're honing their skills.
Yes. And that's the other thing. They might even go in as an expert in something else and then come out with 2 other expertise, like certifications, if you will, in criminality.
So let's start. Let's start if we want some sort of police reform or anything else. Why don't we start in the prisons and reform the people who are there? It's supposed to be a correctional facility. Let's start correcting them.
I know. It must not be that bad because people keep going back time and time again. Yeah. I mean, it must not be that bad. You have TV, you have food. I mean,
you got all sorts of rights. Yeah. You got a nice gym to work out in. Yeah. I remember when I loved when we elected a governor who actually was standing up for law and order some years back, and some reporter asked him, said, Mr. Governor, the prisoners are complaining about the conditions, about the living conditions in our prisons. And his retort was, well, let them stay out of them. You know, there's an either or thing here. I remember one of our governors got a letter of complaint that said that the felt on their pool table in the recreation room was getting a little worn at the state penitentiary. Wow. Well, oh, geez.
Entitlement.
Let me just slit my wrist. How terrible that the felt on the pool table was getting a little frayed at the state pen.
Must be nice. I don't even have a pool table, Bill.
I'd like to have one of those myself, yeah. where the felt was getting a little ragged.
I know. I take little felty.
Off to Home Depot for more felt, but he fixed it. He got it fixed. Not. Yeah. Oh yeah. Gosh. Oh yeah. His name was Joe Frank Harris. God, he was awful.
Wow, they have more rights than we do, Bill.
Yeah. Oh, they do.
It's crazy.
There's no doubt. All right. Well, we got more rights to come back and talk to you some more about what's happening around the world and see if we can get things straightened out. It turns out that we're much more concerned about the Ukrainian border than we are ours.
That's been going on for a while, Bill.
Mm-hmm. And it's getting worse.
We'll talk about that when we get back.
The challenge from Senator Ted Cruz.
My fellow Americans, it looks like some things have changed. Are we doing a good enough job teaching our children what America is and what she represents?
You want an abortion? Get one!
Younger parents aren't sure that an appreciation of America is the right thing to teach modern children.
We're not going to make America great again. It was never that great.
When I drive into a neighborhood and there are American flags, it's a message of white supremacy.
I'm warning of an eradication of the American memory that could result in an erosion of the American spirit.
We need to completely dismantle the police department.
If we forget what we did, we won't know who we are. We've got to do a better job of getting across that America is free, and freedom is special and rare. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of enterprise. As long as we remember our first principle and believe in ourselves, the future will always be ours. Ours was the first revolution in the history of mankind that truly reversed the course of government, and with three little words: we the people. We the people are free. Once you begin a great movement, there's no telling where it'll end.
Reckless spending, driving up inflation, higher prices that hurt Georgians.
I'm trying to save $2, and Senator Raphael Warnock votes to spend almost $2 trillion.
$140 to fill my truck. And Senator Warnock voted to allow $140 million to be spent building a resort in Florida?
$15 for burgers. Senator Warnock voted to allow $15 million to be spent on a soccer stadium in New Jersey.
Tell Senator Warnock to stop voting for reckless spending. Stop.
Stop. Please stop.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
Heading down the home stretch on this Wednesday morning. Glad you could join us. We'd like your comments. We still have, we got a few things to iron out. We're still trying to get technical glitches fixed up, and so this is a learning curve for all of us here. So we appreciate you staying with us, and we're going to get everything worked out. And by God, we're going to be professional as can be.
Yes, you are not even going to believe it. It's
Yeah.
going to be amazing. But Bill.
Yeah.
You teased us before the break.
Mm-hmm. Karine Jean-Pierre,
oh my gosh,
the Minister of Propaganda at the White House, whose IQ is approaching single digits.
I hope you're going to talk about what Peter Doocy asked her yesterday.
Well, first of all, she's not going to. She wasn't invited to go to Taco Bell for breakfast to maybe get a breakfast taco. But Ted Cruz and his podcast, Verdict with Ted Cruz, over the weekend, challenged her to come to the border. Because last week in a press conference, when Peter Doocy asked her another intelligent question, he's about the only one in the press corps that does, asked her, he said, so the best tennis player in the world can't come here to play at the U.S. Open because he hadn't gotten the Fauci ouchie, and yet we've got these thousands of people that are coming across the border. It says nobody's walking across the border. No, they're not. They're swimming across.
Well,
you got to learn how to speak. You have to learn how to speak Bidenese. Yeah. So she haughtily declared yesterday that she would not be lectured to by Republicans on border security after publicly turning down an invitation from Senator Ted Cruz. He said, "Come on down to the border. If you think nobody's coming across, I invite you to come down here with me and go out on one of these boats and watch." He said, "If you don't see 100 people coming across the border while we're there, I will publicly apologize." And she said she wouldn't do it.
That's weird. Call their bluff, and guess what happens?
Mm-hmm.
They refuse to even participate.
So once again, Karine Jean-Pierre decides that she is not going to be lectured to by Ted Cruz. So then there was this yesterday.
Oh my goodness. So then Peter Doocy, of course, is like, so you say that questioning elections makes you an extremist, right?
Uh-huh.
So
a MAGA, ultra MAGA extremist.
Yeah. Domestic terrorist level, I think we're getting to. So he asked her about her saying and questioning the election in 2016. And she's like, I was waiting for you to ask me that question.
Mm-hmm.
She's unbelievable in the way that she handles things. And she's like, it's not the same thing. You can't compare the two. It's not the same.
Yeah.
How is it not?
Yeah. So they're
they're
questioning. They still say that Stacey Abrams won the election here in Georgia, but we know that because the Hildebeest says that she won the election, and that's been backed up by Amy Klobuchar.
Well, I think
in
she
Minnesota.
lost by 60,000 votes, didn't she, to Kemp?
It was pretty close to that. Yeah. She lost the election, believe me.
Mm-hmm.
But she's never conceded. She's never conceded. She said, Finally, she said, I will accept the results. But she never did. She never did say. And of course, you've had, and for the last 3 years, you've heard nothing but Stacey Abrams said it won the election. And if it weren't for voter fraud, what voter fraud that we have here as far as stuffing the ballot box? We had plenty of that. We had plenty of voter fraud, but it wasn't suppression of your vote.
No.
We have almost 3 weeks, 12 to 18 days of early voting in Georgia. And in the state of Delaware, the first state where, guess who's from?
I think Biden's from there, isn't he?
I believe he is. Only white guy from Delaware.
According to Biden.
Yes. So there's, in Delaware, there's how many days of early voting?
I believe the answer is 0.
Yep. And so you vote on election day.
Which I prefer. I think it's a
I do
wonderful
too.
idea.
I do
think that
too.
We should have stuck with that.
Yes, sir. We've talked about making it a national holiday and just have, fireworks, giving people water in line. The lies they told about what we did here in Georgia were just unbelievable and were never challenged by anybody in the lamestream media.
No, because then they would have to actually do some investigating and reporting.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Journalism has actually gotten easier because you don't even research anything. You just make stuff up and then decide that that's the truth.
Yeah, there you go.
It's quite amazing.
It's our version of the truth.
Yeah. You don't get to tell me what my truth is, Bill.
Yeah.
You don't get to tell me that.
So, and Cruz said, quoting here, you can pick your damn hour of the day that you want. The senator said you can come in at 2 in the morning. You can come at noon. You will see them coming because they are coming every single hour. So quit denying the fact that people are not coming across this border, and yet because Novich didn't get the Fauci ouchie, he can't come here and compete in the U.S. Open. What he should have done is gone down to Juarez and walked across and then come in and gone to the U.S. Open.
Yep.
He could have gotten, in fact, Governor Abbott may have given him a bus.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Would have been
Easy.
Perfect. A little longer than, or actually we're putting some people on planes, so
yes, we are.
He might have been able to get a first class ticket.
It's so frustrating to talk about this stuff because it's like, why?
Had you written a book about this 10 years ago, you could have been thrown out of every publisher's office on the planet. And they would say, I know truth is stranger than fiction, but nothing is this crazy. And here we are. And
they don't even talk about the border. Like, it is one of those things that they do not talk about. It's not reported on. It doesn't exist.
We talk about the power of the media. One of
Literally.
the most insidious powers that the media has is the power to ignore. What are we talking about? What's the big story in the media right now? The Mar-a-Lago raid. They're not talking about the border, as we were mentioning, of the thousands of people that are coming across illegally, and some of them could be terrorists, and they could be coming to a neighborhood near you. They're not talking about, there's still a baby formula shortage?
Yes, there is.
Haven't heard anything about that? And so the supply chain shortage overall. Crickets.
Well, and they're not talking about they're redefining terms so that they can get away with saying we're not in a recession.
Exactly.
And it's very dangerous because people, they're still living their lives like nothing's changed, but things are going to change in this country no matter how much they deny it. Reality will hit everyone. It doesn't matter. The mainstream media can tell you every lie they can, but reality is when you go put gas in your car. Reality is when you go to the grocery store. Reality is when you cannot pay your car payment, you can't pay your house payment, can't pay your heating bills. That's all reality that's coming, Bill. And there's nothing they can do to lie about it.
And the real reality might come when you can't find much to eat anymore. What we're doing to our farmers is criminal. I don't know if they realize it or not. That they always accuse us on the left of being, the Republicans they're in favor of bad air and bad water. So we don't want environmental controls because we just as soon have bad air. But I hate to tell you this, but we live on the same planet.
Well,
so
not only that,
when you
we hunt and fish and all of those things.
Yes.
And that impacts everything.
Yeah.
So yes, we want healthy deer, healthy fish. We don't want to be eating chemically treated fish, right?
Or fish swimming in chemicals.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So we actually live on the same planet. When you're not eating anymore, that's going to affect you too. Food shortage is going, sooner or later, you might be in the elite crowd that is able to get more access to a food supply that maybe us flesh and blood creeps aren't entitled to. But sooner or later, the roosters come home to roost.
Yes, they do. And I'm hoping that it doesn't get that bad. I'm hoping that we can take control in 2022.
I hope so too, but a lot of ranchers are either getting out of the business, or they're selling off their herds, or they're selling off their pigs. And we sure do love barbecue down here in the sunny South.
Yes,
I sure would hate to go to the barbecue place and say, "Would you like barbecue tofu?"
Oh, please no, Bill. That's not even funny to joke about.
I know.
It's not even funny to joke about.
Shredded tofu. That's what we got.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
no,
boy.
I'm not eating that, Bill.
I remember when they came out with at Thanksgiving, they say, let's save all the turkey. They came up with the name Tofurkey, and I said, I'm not going to eat anything named Tofurkey.
No.
I don't care how good it tastes. You're not giving me anything called Tofurkey.
Have you had tofu?
Yes, I have.
Did you enjoy it?
No.
I didn't enjoy it either. I think it's absolutely disgusting.
One of the worst things in the world. It's like in Australia. I understand. That there was a Australian singing group that had a couple of hit songs here back in the 80s, and they talked about a Vegemite sandwich. One of the lyrics was a Vegemite sandwich, and I finally asked somebody from Australia. I said, "What the heck is a Vegemite sandwich?" And Vegemite is some sort of a spread, kind of like mayonnaise or something, but it's an Australian
version of mayonnaise.
Sandwich spread of some kind. I said, "How is it?" He said, "It is god awful. It's made out of some vegetable stuff and oils and butter or whatever. I don't know, but they said it's pretty bad. So their version of tofu is Vegemite."
Oh, I don't like that. Well, and these Impossible burgers that they're trying to push on us. And McDonald's actually, didn't they recently get rid of theirs?
Yeah. They finally said the Beyond Meat, the Beyond Burger is no longer available at McDonald's, at least in most locations, because it was not exactly, shall we say, selling off the shelves.
No, I would not eat that.
Well, as the old Egyptian undertaker used to say after a hard day's work, that about wraps it up.
Yes, and we are excited to have you guys here. We want you to go to our website, GRA News Media. You can get all of our social links there. And we're on YouTube, Rumble, Vimeo, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. So check us out on those platforms.
Share this with your friends. Let them know. And pretty soon, we want to hear from you. So tell us what we can do. Until then, we'll see you for the Thursday edition. And we have some very special people to talk about tomorrow on that show. So hope to see you then. Enjoy your day.